Hello and welcome back to a meta guide to Balls. In this series I'm taking a look at every song from the SPARKS album from the year 2000, that's Balls, and I'm looking at them line by line and showing how the whole thing ties into a bigger context, and that is the story of a band who are trying to break out of their record deal in order to win creative freedom for themselves. They're doing this by recording an album of pop hits just as the label asked them to, but they're designing them to not appeal to the record buying public. They don't want these songs to be hits because if the album sells, then they'll be stuck in their record deal. I've given lots of examples so far in this series of places where they're turning down the colour on these songs, not least on the last song, The Calm Before the Storm, where they've got verses that reference things like the dogs are letting postmen come and go, the muscle cars are driving way too slow. So it's like this unmet potential in their songwriting for the usual kind of exciting stories that SPARKS excel at in their music. And today's song, How to Get Your Ass Kicked, is a great example of that, because it's a song about losing a fight. And it's possible to write an exciting song about fighting, but here it's just about being beaten up. It's so downbeat. So without further ado, let's take a listen to the opening verse.
Look askance, just a glance, just enough to incite the wrath of a confidant, strong the gaunt, and it's how to get your ass kicked, how to get your ass kicked.
I love how sparse the verses are on this song. It's really saying a lot with a little and still leaving these questions unanswered. It's a fascinating song. Each of the verses seem to paint a picture where the narrator is about to get beaten up for some situation that he's walked into. And in this first verse, it's because he's looked at somebody the wrong way, or they've taken it the wrong way. It says, look askance, just a glance, just enough to incite the wrath of her confidant, strong though gaunt, and that's how to get your ass kicked. But instead, let's look at this verse from the point of view of SPARKS writing about their own songwriting. This is something that they do a lot, and in the context of the album Balls, it's about writing songs to not appeal to the wider public. So that first line is look askance, and to look askance is to look with disapproval or distrust. Maybe that's something that they're engineering into these lyrics, but obviously they still want to create great music, so it's just a glance. This reminds me of the opening line of the album.
Nothing too prosaic, nothing too archaic, here's your wake-up call.
My interpretation of those opening lines is that SPARKS are making an album which is nothing too prosaic and nothing too archaic, but it's at least a little bit prosaic and archaic because they want it to seem like a weaker album than it really is, and that ties into the lines look askance, as in look like something that can't be trusted, but just a glance, because underneath it all there is still a great album here. So it's just a glance and it's just enough. And the result is an album which is strong though gaunt. Now these are two words that you wouldn't usually put next to each other, because gaunt means lean and haggard. You'd expect like a tired old man to be gaunt. So strong though gaunt seems like a contradiction, but that's what we're getting with this album. It's a really strong album, but the look of it is gaunt. It looked in the year 2000 like SPARKS were running on fumes. It looked like they were at the end of their creative streak, not at the start of a new one that would last decades. So they're making something that is just enough to incite the wrath of her confidant. And a confidant is somebody with whom you can share your secret information. And I'm seeing the record label in this role, because this is music that SPARKS can't share with the world. The only people who will know it at this point are SPARKS themselves and the record label. So the label is the confidant, and they're inciting wrath in the confidant by delivering this album, which in the label's eyes isn't good enough because it doesn't have any huge obvious hit singles like When Do I Get to Sing My Way on it. And wrath is a kind of anger that expresses itself in a desire to punish somebody. So if Sparks wanted to get dropped by the label, then they want to incite this wrath. This points to a double meaning in the title of the song, because they're going into this meeting with the record label knowing that they'll get their ass kicked. But in doing so, they're kicking the ass of the record label because they're getting what they want out of this meeting.
Never learn to discern areas where you don't belong, so you venture out, heading clouds, and it's how to get your ass kicked. How to get your ass kicked. How to get your ass kicked. I know.
This verse sounds like the narrator is strolling into the wrong side of town, completely oblivious to all the dangers that surround him. The words are, never learn to discern areas where you don't belong. This also works as a reference to Sparks intentionally choosing the wrong style of music for themselves. The sound of Balls follows on from gratuitous sax and senseless violins with a kind of pop dance sound, but it's got a much harder edge to it, akin to The Prodigy or the Chemical Brothers, and this just doesn't suit two softly spoken men in their 50s. On the song What Are All These Bands So Angry About, on the follow-up album Little Beethoven, they talk about other bands who have stolen their spotlight, and that also makes reference to choosing a harder sound.
Hey everybody, what can we do? Crank it up just a notch or two. Hey everybody, what can we do? What are all these bands so angry about? Hey everybody, they called our bluff. Our profane ain't profane enough. Hey everybody, they called our bluff. What are all these bands so angry about?
So on Little Beethoven, in order to compete with these angry bands who were topping the charts at the time, they say that they'll crank it up just a notch or two, but that hasn't worked because their profane ain't profane enough. So it's the wrong genre, or it's an area where they don't belong. This time, after the chorus of How to Get Your Ass Kicked, they sing I know, as if they're feeling this personally, as if delivering this album that they know will be rejected is kind of humiliating. But the I know later on in the song turns into oh well.
How to get your ass kicked? Oh well, oh well, oh well, oh well.
This sounds like somebody who doesn't mind that he's getting his ass kicked, and coupled with the title, which sounds like an instruction on how to get your ass kicked, it sounds like this is no accident, and that of course is true of Sparks. This is exactly what they intend.
Driving home, bikes and chrome, cut you off, and you flip them off, and they take the turns, many turns, and that's how to get your ass kicked.
In this verse, the narrator is involved in a road rage incident with some bikers, and that is how he gets his ass kicked. The words are, driving home, bikes in chrome, cut you off so you flip them off, and they take their turns, many turns. But I'm not completely sure that he does get his ass kicked, because let's take a look at those final 2 lines again. They take their turns, many turns. I always interpreted this as the bikers sticking the boot in and beating him up. But if you see a bike taking a turn, it's just driving normally. So this could be a case of nothing happening. So with that in mind, let's look back on the previous song, which is The Calm Before the Storm. That's got the line, "The dogs are letting postmen come and go, the muscle cars are driving way too slow." So it's referring to this untapped potential in the songwriting, and that's what's happening here. Getting beaten up by a biker gang is a funny and exciting subject for a song, but here nothing happens. And the ass kicking is still present because by not using their full songwriting powers, Sparks are kicking the ass of the record label. So I see this verse as Ron rejecting great ideas for songs because they're not right for this album. There's another line in The Calm Before the Storm which is, "For every yes, 100 no's." So they're really limiting what they do to a style which is not palatable to the record buying public.
In the end, then is when you will pray, but you won't be answered, and then you go, end of show, and that's how to get your ass kicked.
The song ends with the same lack of drama that's characterised the entire song. The words are, "In the end, then is when you will pray, but you won't be answered, and then you'll go, end of show." He prays for help, it doesn't come, but never mind, oh well. Now, in the context of this series where I'm interpreting every line as saying something about Sparks breaking out of their record deal, I don't quite understand the line, "You will pray, but you won't be answered." But communication between man and God is something that appears all over Sparks' back catalogue. They do it a lot, and I think there are some connections to be made to the closing song of the album here, which is The Angels. That song includes the line, "I heard the angels call your name," and that is like the opposite of a prayer, having angels call a person, and in both cases they're not answered. In The Angels the person is leaving, and in this song the same is true. It says, "And then you'll go, end of show," and I think this signifies the end of version 1.0 of Sparks. This is the version of Sparks that would hop from genre to genre, from scene to scene, before their reinvention, where they were their own genre of music. So this is looking forward to Sparks saying goodbye to the record industry. Now, I'm not completely satisfied with that explanation, but hopefully by the time I get to the video for The Angels, I'll have it fully worked out. So that brings us to the end of another episode. Thank you everybody for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you could like and subscribe and comment, I'd be incredibly grateful. I'll be back with another episode soon. This time it'll be one of the songs from The Girl Is Crying in Her Latte. So I hope you all join me for that, and I'll catch you all soon. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.